The train had barely been moving for 4 minutes when a woman I had never seen before dropped into the empty seat beside me, grabbed my hand with both of hers, and whispered in a voice so calm it almost hid the panic underneath. "Please, don't pull away. You're my husband for the next 3 hours." I stared at her. She looked to be around 30, chestnut brown hair tucked behind one ear, a dark green wool coat, intelligent blue eyes that kept flicking toward the aisle without turning her head. Then I followed her gaze. 3 rows behind us stood a tall man who had just boarded the train. He wasn't looking for a seat. He was looking for her. He wore an easy smile, but there was something about it that felt rehearsed, like a mask stretched over something colder. Without understanding why, I knew one thing. This woman wasn't flirting. She was asking for help. So I turned my hand over, intertwined my fingers with hers, smiled as naturally as I could, and said loud enough for the man to hear, "There you are. I was wondering when you'd finally catch up. I saved you a seat." She looked at me for half a second, just long enough for relief to wash across her face. That was the moment I met the woman who would become my wife. But to explain how that happened, I have to tell you who I was before she ever sat beside me. My name is Ethan Parker. I'm 34 years old, and I work as a paramedic in a small town north of Boston. Every day I spend my life running toward emergencies while everyone else runs away. Car accidents, heart attacks, house fires, people's worst moments. I've learned something after 12 years in emergency medicine. Panic spreads faster than blood. If one person stays calm, everyone has a chance. So I stay calm. My hands never shake, even when everyone around me is falling apart. People have always admired that about me. The truth is a little less heroic. Staying calm became easy after I stopped feeling much of anything. I was riding that train because of my father. For 30 years, my dad worked that exact rail line as a conductor. He checked tickets, helped elderly passengers with luggage, made sure children didn't wander too far from their parents. He knew nearly every regular commuter by name. Whenever I was a kid, he'd sometimes let me ride the line with him during school vacations. He always said the same thing. "Ethan, this job isn't really about trains." I'd ask him what he meant. He'd smile. "It's about getting strangers home safely. Doesn't matter where they're coming from or where they're going. While they're on my train, they're my responsibility." He believed that with his whole heart. 3 years earlier, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, he died from a massive heart attack. No warning. No final conversation. One moment he was alive. The next moment, he was gone. Ever since then, every year on the anniversary of his death, I ride his train from one end of the line to the other, the entire route, alone, just to feel close to him again. I wear his wedding ring on my right hand every time I make that trip. It's become my tradition, the only tradition I still keep. The truth is, after my father died, something inside me shut down. Not all at once, quietly, like lights being switched off room by room inside a house. My wife at the time watched it happen. Her name was Sarah. She tried everything. She encouraged me to see a therapist. She planned weekend trips. She begged me to take time off work. She held me while I stared through her as if I couldn't see her anymore. One night, she finally sat across from me at our kitchen table. There were tears in her eyes. "Ethan," she said softly, "you're still alive, but you haven't really been here for almost 2 years." I didn't answer, because she was right. She continued, "I miss my husband." Silence. "I don't think he's coming back." Neither of us cried. We were already too exhausted for that. 3 months later, we signed the divorce papers. I never blamed her. She deserved someone who was actually living. Instead, she got a man who could save complete strangers while forgetting how to save himself. That's who I was the morning Emily sat beside me. A man riding his late father's train. A man carrying a wedding ring that no longer belonged to anyone living. A man who believed the best parts of his life were already behind him. The tall man started walking toward us. Of course he did. Men like that always need to remind everyone they're in control. He stopped beside our seats. "Emily." His voice was warm enough to fool anyone who didn't know better. "I thought that was you." She smiled politely. "Hello, Ryan." Only because I was holding her hand could I feel how badly she was trembling. His eyes shifted toward me, toward our intertwined fingers, toward the gold ring resting on my right hand. "And who's this?" I wish I could tell you I'd carefully planned what happened next. I didn't. Something simply took over. Maybe it was my father's voice. Maybe years of protecting strangers had become instinct. Maybe I simply couldn't stand the way he looked at her, like she still belonged to him. Without saying another word, I slipped my father's wedding ring off my finger beneath the edge of the seat. I pressed it gently into Emily's palm. She looked down in confusion. I quietly closed her fingers around it. Then I smiled. "I'm Ethan." I leaned comfortably against the seat beside her. "I'm her husband." Out of the corner of my eye, I watched Emily understand exactly what I was doing. She slowly slid the ring onto her finger. It fit almost perfectly. Ryan noticed. His expression changed for the briefest moment. It wasn't disappointment. It was calculation. "Husband?" he repeated. "Emily, you got married?" She met his eyes. "I did." "You never mentioned it." She gave the smallest smile. "I don't tell you much anymore." For the first time since he'd approached us, his smile slipped. Only for a second. Then it came back. "Well," he said, "congratulations." He looked at me again. "I hope she's treating you better than she treated me." I smiled politely. "I've got absolutely no complaints." His jaw tightened. "I'll let you two enjoy your trip." He walked back toward his seat. Only then did I notice the young blonde woman waiting for him. She barely looked up from her phone. Emily let out a shaky breath. She still hadn't released my hand. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. I panicked. "It's okay." "No, it's not." She looked embarrassed. "I've been dreading this train ride for a week. Then I saw Ryan get on, and you were the only person sitting alone." She looked at me carefully. "You looked safe." The word surprised me. Safe. No one had ever described me that way. "I'm really sorry," she continued. "I'll move to another seat now. I'll give you your ring back and we'll both pretend none of this ever happened." I glanced toward the dark reflection in the train window. Ryan wasn't looking directly at us anymore. He didn't have to. He was watching our reflection. "Keep the ring on," I said quietly. She blinked. "What?" "He's still watching." She carefully turned toward the glass. Sure enough, Ryan's eyes were fixed on us through the reflection. She slowly faced forward again. "I guess," I said with a small smile, "if we're married, we should probably act like it." For the first time since she'd sat down beside me, she laughed. It was quiet, a little broken, but real. "I can't believe you're actually doing this. I can't believe I said yes." She shook her head. "You really don't know anything about me." "Then tell me." She looked down at the ring. "My name is Emily Carter. I'm 30. And Ryan," she paused, "was supposed to become my husband." Emily stared at the ring for a long moment before continuing. "We were engaged for almost 2 years." The train rolled steadily through the countryside, the rhythm of the wheels filling the silence between us. I ended the engagement 8 months ago. I waited. Years as a paramedic had taught me something important. People tell the truth when they know they won't be interrupted. She took a slow breath. "Everyone thinks I cheated on him." I looked at her. "They think I destroyed his life." Her fingers slowly turned my father's ring around and around. "They think I walked away 3 weeks before the wedding because I was unstable." Another pause. "None of it's true." She swallowed. "Ryan cheated on me." The words came quietly. "So I left." She smiled without any happiness. But Ryan had something I didn't. What? He told the story first. I nodded. That alone explained more than she realized. He called everyone before I had even packed my apartment. My parents. Our friends. My coworkers. His family. He cried. He apologized for loving me. He said I'd been seeing another man for months. And everyone believed him. She looked out the window. I was still trying to figure out how to breathe. When I finally realized what he'd done, it was already too late. I asked the obvious question. Why didn't you tell everyone the truth? She closed her eyes. Because the wedding we're going to is my younger sister's. I frowned. My sister Olivia. She's marrying Ryan's cousin. That explained everything. Our families have spent over a year planning this wedding together. If I expose Ryan now, I don't just ruin him. I ruin the relationship between both families. I ruin my sister's wedding. I become the center of attention. I turn the happiest weekend of her life into a battlefield. She looked at me. So I stayed quiet. I let everyone hate me. I let them whisper. I let them think I was selfish. Because Olivia deserves one weekend that isn't about me. There wasn't a trace of self-pity in her voice, only exhaustion. I had seen people with broken bones look stronger than she did, not because they hurt less, because they had finally become used to hurting. So today, I have to spend 3 days smiling at people who think I'm the villain. And She looked down. I couldn't walk in there alone. The train grew quiet around us. A conductor announced the next station over the speakers. Nobody moved. I thought about my father, about all the strangers he'd looked after, about the thousands of lives that had crossed his path for only a few minutes. Then I looked back at Emily. I don't think you're the villain. She blinked. I think you're protecting someone you love. There's a difference. Her eyes filled instantly. I don't even know you. I know enough. I smiled. My dad used to say people show you who they are during difficult journeys. He wasn't talking about trains. She laughed softly. I think I would have liked your father. I think he would have liked you too. For a while we simply watched the landscape pass outside. Then she asked, so, if we're pretending to be married, we should probably have a story. I grinned. Probably. We spent the next hour inventing our life together. We met at the hospital. She had slipped on ice. I was the paramedic who treated her. She insisted she flirted first. I claimed I was too professional to notice. She rolled her eyes. That's exactly what a paramedic would say. We decided we'd been together for 18 months, married for 6. We rented a small apartment outside Boston. We argued over where to keep the coffee maker. We wanted a golden retriever. She said its name would be Cooper. I wanted Charlie. She declared Cooper had already won. By the end of the conversation, it felt strangely real. Not because the details were convincing, because somewhere between making them up. We stopped pretending. She asked about my work, not the exciting stories, the difficult ones. The calls you never forget. Most people ask because they're curious. Emily asked because she genuinely wanted to understand, so I told her. About the little boy who reminded me of my nephew, about the elderly husband who refused to leave his wife's side, about the teenage girl who held my hand inside an ambulance because she thought she was dying. Emily never interrupted, never tried to fix it. She simply listened. When I finished, she asked quietly, "Is that why you never panic?" I shrugged. Someone has to stay calm. She studied me. No. I looked at her. You stay calm because everyone else needs somewhere safe to stand. The sentence landed harder than she could possibly know. Sarah had once looked at me and said, "You've stopped feeling." Emily looked at exactly the same man and saw someone steady instead of broken. It didn't erase my grief, but somehow it changed the shape of it. Halfway through the trip, Ryan returned, this time carrying 2 cups of coffee. He smiled. "You two still doing okay?" Emily leaned comfortably against my shoulder before answering. We're great. Ryan looked at me. So, how long have you been married? Emily answered at exactly the same moment I did. 6 months. Ryan blinked. The synchronized answer caught him completely off guard. He recovered quickly. Congratulations. He handed one coffee to the blonde woman waiting behind him, then looked back toward us. Funny. I never imagined Emily settling down this quickly. I smiled. Sometimes life surprises you. It certainly does. He walked away. Emily waited until he was gone, then she burst into quiet laughter. I can't believe that worked. We're getting better. We're terrifyingly good. She shook her head. You know, if someone had told me this morning I'd spend 3 hours pretending to be married to a stranger, I would have called them crazy. And yet here we are. The laughter slowly faded. She looked at the ring again. Ethan, can I ask you something? Anything. Whose ring is this? I looked at my hand. The empty finger suddenly felt strange. It belonged to my father. Her smile disappeared. The conductor. I nodded. He wore it for 35 years. He never took it off. When he died, I started wearing it. Only on this train. She looked horrified. Oh my God. I've been wearing your father's wedding ring this whole time. I'm so sorry. She immediately started pulling it off. I gently touched her hand. Leave it. No. I can't. This means too much. It does. So keep wearing it. She stared at me. My father believed his job was getting strangers home safely. I smiled toward the passing landscape. I can't think of a better way to honor him than letting his ring help one more stranger today. Emily's eyes filled with tears. You really believe that? I do. She slowly stopped trying to remove the ring. I wish I'd met your father. I think, she whispered, he raised a remarkable son. No one had said anything like that to me in years. I looked away before she noticed how much those words affected me. For a while, neither of us spoke. She quietly slipped her hand into mine again. This time, not because she was pretending, not because Ryan was watching, just because it felt natural, and for the first time since my father's funeral, holding another person's hand didn't remind me of loss. It reminded me that maybe I wasn't as alone as I'd convinced myself I was. The train continued south, carrying 2 strangers who had boarded with completely different burdens. Neither of us realized that before the day was over, neither of us would be walking away alone. The final hour of the journey passed far too quickly. Neither of us said it out loud. We didn't have to. There was a quiet sadness settling between us, the kind that only appears when 2 people realize the moment they're living inside is almost over. The conductor announced the next station. Emily looked out the window. This is my stop. She slowly slipped my father's wedding ring off her finger. She held it in both hands for a moment before placing it gently into my palm. Thank you. Her voice was barely above a whisper. You have no idea what you've given me today. I smiled. I think I do. She shook her head. No. For 3 hours, I wasn't the woman everyone pitied. I wasn't the unstable ex. I wasn't the villain. I was simply, she smiled through damp eyes, someone's wife. She closed my fingers around the ring exactly the way I had closed hers hours earlier. I'll never forget today. Neither would I. The train slowed. The doors opened. Emily picked up her suitcase. She looked at me one last time. Go home safely, Ethan. I think your father would be proud of you. Then she stepped onto the platform. The doors remained open. I watched her walk away, one step, then another. The crowd slowly swallowed her, and suddenly the train felt emptier than it had that morning. I looked down at my father's ring resting in my hand. 3 years. 3 years I'd been drifting through life without really living it. Then one frightened stranger had sat beside me, and somehow reminded me I still had a heart. The announcement sounded again. Doors closing. The train gave a slight jolt. I heard my father's voice as clearly as if he were sitting beside me. While they're on my train, they're my responsibility. Emily wasn't safe yet. She still had 3 days ahead of her. 3 days surrounded by people who believed lies about her. 3 days pretending none of it hurt. Without thinking any further, I grabbed my backpack and stepped off the train just before the doors closed. She had only made it halfway across the platform when I called her name. "Emily!" She turned, surprised. "Ethan?" I hurried toward her, slightly out of breath. "I've been thinking." She smiled. "That sounds dangerous." "It probably is." She waited. I looked at the ring in my hand, then back at her. My father had one rule. She tilted her head. "You don't leave someone until they're safely home." She listened quietly. "You've got 3 days ahead of you. I've got absolutely nowhere I need to be. I can rent a car. I can book a hotel. I'll get separate rooms. I'll sleep on the couch. I don't care. But," I took a slow breath, "I don't think you should have to walk into that wedding alone." She stared at me. "I know we've only known each other for 3 hours. I know this sounds completely insane. But," I smiled, "I'm not ready to say goodbye yet." Neither of us spoke. The station around us seemed to disappear. People hurried past carrying bags and coffee cups. Neither of us noticed. Finally, she laughed, then wiped away tears at the same time. "You really are the strangest man I've ever met. You've mentioned that once or twice. I mean it. I know." She looked down at the ring. "You still trust me with this?" "I do." She slowly slid it back onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "Then," she smiled, "I guess my husband should come meet my family." 3 days. That's all it was supposed to be. 3 more days pretending, nothing more. Except real feelings have a way of ignoring careful plans. The moment we walked into the rehearsal dinner together, I could feel every pair of eyes turning toward us. Whispers immediately spread across the room. Emily Carter had arrived, and, apparently, she had a husband. Ryan noticed us almost instantly. His smile disappeared before he could hide it. He walked over carrying a drink. "Emily." Then he looked at me. "So, you actually came. I told you I would." He smiled politely. "I'm glad someone finally managed to make her happy." His words sounded kind. His eyes didn't. I answered before Emily could. "She seems pretty happy to me." He nodded once. "I hope you know who you married." "I do." "Do you?" "I've spent enough time with Emily to know exactly who she is." Ryan chuckled. "Careful. She fooled me for 2 years." I smiled back. "Funny. My experience has been exactly the opposite." His expression hardened. "You'll figure it out eventually. I already have." The room had grown noticeably quieter. People were pretending not to listen. Ryan noticed. He forced another smile. "We'll talk later." "I don't think we need to." He walked away. Emily exhaled. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to." She looked at me for a long moment. No one stood beside me like that in a very long time. The wedding weekend unfolded more peacefully than either of us expected. Nobody confronted Emily. Nobody openly accused her. Instead, something interesting happened. People watched. They watched the way I looked at her, the way she laughed around me, the way she relaxed whenever I reached for her hand. Little by little, questions began appearing. If Emily was really the unstable woman Ryan described, why did she seem so calm? If she was cruel, why did everyone around her seem comfortable? If she was bitter, why was she smiling more than anyone else? The story Ryan had built so carefully began developing tiny cracks, not because anyone exposed him, because reality quietly contradicted his version. On the second evening came the reception. After dinner, the band invited married couples onto the dance floor. Emily froze. "Oh no." I looked at her. "What?" "I can't dance." "You don't have to be perfect." "I mean, she whispered. I genuinely cannot dance. I'll embarrass both of us. I stood, held out my hand. My father always said people don't get home safely if they're too afraid to take the first step. She laughed. I think your father had advice for everything. He really did. She slipped her hand into mine. We walked onto the dance floor. 200 people watched. The music began. We swayed awkwardly. She stepped on my foot almost immediately. Oh no. I'm so sorry. I laughed. One. What? Only 1 foot. You've got another. She couldn't stop laughing. Halfway through the song, she looked around nervously. They're all staring. I gently touched her cheek. Don't look at them. Look at me. She did. Everything else disappeared. For 3 minutes. The room didn't exist. There were no rumors, no lies, no pretending. Only 2 people holding each other. By the end of the dance, I knew. This wasn't an act anymore. When the music ended, she didn't let go. Neither did I. That night we sat outside the hotel watching the stars. Neither of us wanted to sleep. Ethan. I need to tell you something. I turned toward her. I stopped pretending somewhere on that train. So did I. She smiled. You already knew. I think I did. I don't know what happens after tomorrow. I do. She looked surprised. I'm taking you to dinner. She laughed. Like, a real date? The realest one I've ever asked someone on. She nodded. I'd like that. The wedding ended without drama. Emily never exposed Ryan. She never interrupted her sister's happiness. She kept the promise she'd made to herself. But life has a remarkable way of revealing truth without our help. 4 months later, Ryan's new girlfriend discovered he had been cheating on her too. This time, there were text messages, photos, proof. Everything came into the open. One by one, people realized Emily had never lied. She had simply refused to defend herself at someone else's expense. Her younger sister called in tears. I'm so sorry. I believed him. Emily smiled as she listened. I know. Can you forgive me? There was never anything to forgive. That was who Emily was. Grace always came more naturally to her than revenge. 6 months later, I transferred to a station closer to where she lived. My coworkers noticed the difference. You smile now. You laugh. What happened to you? I never really knew how to answer. How do you explain that a stranger borrowed your father's wedding ring and somehow gave you your life back? 1 year after that train ride, Emily and I stood inside a small courthouse. The judge smiled. Do you have the rings? Emily looked at me, then raised her left hand. She was already wearing one. My father's wedding ring. She had never taken it off. Neither of us had ever talked about giving it back. It had quietly become hers. I slipped a new wedding band beside it. Then I looked into her eyes. I guess this means we're finally making it official. She laughed. I've been calling you my husband since 4 minutes after I met you. The judge laughed with us. Moments later, the woman who had once borrowed my father's ring became my wife for real. Sometimes people ask me if I believe in fate. I never know exactly how to answer. Maybe it wasn't fate. Maybe it was timing. Maybe it was coincidence. Or maybe my father spent 30 years helping strangers get home safely. And somehow, on the anniversary of the day I lost him, he managed to help one last stranger. The funny thing is, I thought Emily needed saving. The truth is, she was always strong enough to face the world alone. She didn't save me by asking me to pretend to be her husband. She saved me by reminding me that life was still worth showing up for. Sometimes the person sitting beside you isn't there because they need you. Sometimes they're there because, without realizing it, you need them. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever met someone who changed your life completely by accident? Share your story in the comments because I read every one of them. And if you enjoy heartfelt stories about unexpected love, second chances, and the extraordinary ways ordinary people change each other's lives, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next story. Until next time, take care of yourself, stay kind to strangers, and travel safely. Sometimes the next seat beside you may change your life forever.